And we'll just turn that down a little bit. Good afternoon, everybody. Let's say hi to everybody that is in the chat. Tim Postma was here really early this morning. Thank you, Tim, for being the first one in the chat today. Then we've got Note, and I'm going to answer your question shortly. We've got Rex Waldy, our good friend, a longtime member. Matt Gurman as well, another longtime member. 3DHP, my good friend Jerry Knapp. If you're not already subscribed, go and check out 3DHP on your YouTubes and all of your socials. Find him and follow him because he's got some great stuff going on over there. Then we've got the man himself, the Golden Jaguar 3D from Florida. And he's got a great channel as well. I want you to go check him out. Do It 3D Canada, my good friend Tim. Theodore Bradley, John Bima. We got Snapshot FPV and Alteracious. Hello. And then there's Joseph Jolly. Wow, we got everybody here today. All right. So let me just move this. We've got a few things going on. We've got my nice little thing going on today. Yeah, we're looking a little bit special today. Yeah, I don't look like I did much different from last night, but let's get into some of these questions. I'm going to get things started off here really quickly. Going back up, and Note says he needs help leveling his Ender 3 bed. What exactly is going on with your Ender 3 bed? A little bit more information would be certainly helpful there. Tim Postma wants to know how much of the Voron did I complete so far? Absolutely nothing. It's all right here. Last night what we did was we went ahead and we drilled out all the holes that we need. We started doing all of the tapping on these pieces, and I finished that today with the help of Tim, who brought me over a little bench vise that I could use, and it worked out really, really well. So Connor James says, hey, I think I warped the bed on my Ender 5. We had it running for about 3 days continuous. Do you recommend any sort of fix while the replacement is on order? Chances of you wrecking the bed or warping the bed, depending on the temperature you had it at, is pretty slim. The only way you're going to warp that bed when it's hot, like permanently warp it, is if you've got too much pressure on it. Now, one of the things that you can do, and this is why I have the ruler in my hand today, is you can take that ruler, heat up your bed to the temperature that you're printing at, let it come to temperature and sit for a couple of minutes. Then what I would recommend you do is take that ruler on the flat edge and look to see where light is coming through. If you see light coming through in certain areas, let it cool down, and you're going to check it both on the vertical and on the horizontal. Okay, so you want to check it in several different directions. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and take some Kapton tape or take some of the actual silver duct tape, and that will certainly help to allow you to bring up those areas. If you're using glass, that's great. Glass is a much flatter surface, and the bed warping underneath won't affect it too much. So it is a definite thing to look at. Golden Jaguar says he's watching 3 streams at the same time. Wow, I can't even pay attention to one. Shout out to the support Zombie Hedgehog. Theodore Bradley is saying, yes, Zombie Hedgehog, great guy. Got some great stuff going on there. I'm going to see if I've got anything else going on here. There's Sheldon Grant, hello. Alexander Otto, hello. Ben Brady, BW. Jose Ferreira, hi, Dr. Richard. How are you, sir? I'm not a doctor. I just play one on the internet. So Theodore Bradley has a question, and let me just put that question up. He says, I want to connect and run my Anycubic Mega X directly, Marlin 2. I think, what controller command app should I use? That is a good question. I don't have an answer for you on that. I know a lot of stuff, but I don't know everything. And that's one of the things that I don't know, unfortunately. You want to connect and run the Anycubic directly from Marlin 2. So you want to connect it to your computer? Is that the idea? If that's the idea, then I would certainly use a program like Pronterface. You can also use Cura to connect to your printer using a USB cable. I'm hoping that's what you're meaning, and you don't need any additional commands for that. There's my good friend Brian Jackson. Greetings, he says. Brian, I do want to say something about Brian Jackson. Brian is a school teacher, and he's teaching kids about 3D printing, robotics, rocketry, and all kinds of great things, and doing a wonderful job in Airdrie, Alberta, which is just, 20 minutes away from me here. But Brian Jackson is a great guy. If you have any questions about space, if you have any questions about rocketry or robotics, he's a great guy to ask, and he's teaching his kids some wonderful things over there. So that's something that you should definitely talk to him about. Stephen Reimer, hello. There's a big wave from Stephen Reimer. Okay, so today's topic, as you guys saw on the top of the show, is, do I really need it? And why I picked that title today was because I get a lot of questions, as you can probably imagine, because I've been doing this for a long time. I get a lot of questions about, should I upgrade my hot end? Should I put in that brand new board? Should I put on a fancy cooling system? All that kind of stuff. Should I build my own 3D printer? And to answer some of those things, the biggest question has to be, does it work for you now? Does what you currently have work for you in the context of what you need it to do? Is it printing good? Is it giving you, everything that you want it to do? If it is, there really is no need to upgrade. One of the things that I see a lot is people going out, especially new people that are new to the hobby, they run out and they grab themselves a brand new 3D printer, and they've been watching the internet, they've been doing the research, and they come across somebody who is big into upgrades. Upgrades like cooling systems, like we're going to be talking about in an upcoming video. Talking about new hot ends and new fancy this and new fancy that. And the one thing I always say to them is, if you went out and bought a brand new car today, would you take that car to your mechanic and have him replace the engine? The answer to that question is probably no. So I would say to you that if you're going to do upgrades, make sure they're upgrades that are warranted for what you're currently doing, or helping you to progress to the next level in your journey of 3D printing in this hobby. Theodore Bradley says, I have a new hot end installed and don't want to let it run wild. Would like to test as I go. Yeah, and that's really what you want to do. You want to run some tests. You want to make sure you're getting the proper amount of flow of the material down through the nozzle. You want to make sure that you're not getting under extrusion, you're not getting over extrusion, you're not printing too fast, and you're not printing too slow. Because every hot end, just like every part that you put in, works a little differently. And it's not like the stock parts that came with your 3D printer. So it's a good idea to take the time, run some tests, run some calibrations, learn from those calibrations, but do that when you buy that new printer as well. Find out what that printer is capable of. Run it to the top end of what you want it to do. And if it doesn't perform, then you may think about getting into upgrades. And upgrades aren't that expensive. Like something to do like this, for instance. This is an upgrade I'm going to be putting on to the Ender 3 that I have here. It's an Ender 3 V2, or pardon me, an Ender 3 Pro. And what is this? Well, this is called the Hero Me Generation 7. And this is basically converting my Bowden setup to a direct drive setup and allowing me to have much better cooling. So I'll be able to print some different materials, not such high temp materials, but I'll be able to print some different materials that require different cooling solutions. And this has a double blower on it. It doesn't necessarily need a double blower, but just in the way that print heads are designed, they usually have air that only comes from one side. This now gives you that almost that 360-degree air, so it's cooling things like PLA much better. So it gives you much nicer prints. Can you print faster with this? Probably a little bit. This is a lot of air movement, however, so you're not going to run something like this at full speed when you, like as far as the fans go, you're not going to run that cooling at 100% because it's going to cool it way too fast, okay? But is it a necessary upgrade? No. No, it's not. All right, let's take a look here over at our chat, and we'll see what's going on. Theodore Brad, make sure you do a PID tune. Yes, that's using M303. Absolutely, I agree with that, Ben. Not broke, don't fix it with upgrades, 3DHP says. And 3DHP and I, we go back a long way to when I started my journey in 3D printing as well. And you know, it's one of those things that I advocate for all the time. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep going with what you got until you know you want to upgrade. Don't rely on the guys that are pushing new stuff all the time. Those guys are doing it a lot for the money. I hate to say it, but they're sponsored by these companies to push that product. Now, in this build for the Voron that we started last night, we are getting some more advanced products, and we are going to go ahead and put those into this. Why are we doing that though? Is because this is the kind of printer that excels from that kind of stuff. And we're going to see how well it works over and above the standard types of stuff that you put into it. I also want to talk about some of this stuff that I got on my desk, but first we've got a question here from Dan B. We're going to put that up here on the screen. I hope everything is coming through okay. He says, question, I'm upgrading my Ender 3 clone to a V6 hot end. Will a PT100 or PT1000 cartridge thermistor work in place of the glass bead thermistor it is replacing? The PT100 will. You're going to have to make sure you change that inside the firmware so that it is registering the right thermistor, and that is a seismite or a seismic thermistor. You'll be able to see it in the firmware, in the ROG code, and then you'll have to upload that because you'll have to make that change. Now, if you're going to a PT1000 cartridge, there is a daughter board that you're going to have to incorporate as well, because that is a much higher end thermistor, and it's something that you might want to be aware of prior to doing that. But a PT100 is going to be just fine on an Ender 3. I wouldn't go to the PT1000 cartridge. The PT100 cartridge is just fine. Matt Gurman says he fell asleep. Okay. Shooter 59, welcome. Good afternoon. Mod your way to the non-working printer. Ask me how I know. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. And do we really need to do all these fancy upgrades? Like, do we need to grab ourselves a brand new hot end? And I know some people are making their way from the classic Ender style hot end to V6 or something else, or the Revo or any of these other ones. Whereas, this guy right here, this will allow you to do different hot ends as well. It makes it kind of universal, but do we really need it? That's the case. I'm doing this to show you how it can be done and to help you educate yourself on what you can do with it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is the right thing to do, okay? Theodore, I actually won the hot end from West 3D, but installing it has been slow. Okay, if you're having problems, Theodore, you can certainly reach out to me at richard@thefirstlayer.com. So that's richard@thefirstlayer.com, and I can try and walk you through some of that. Shadell, welcome, sir. HVAC A to Z, hello, sir. Gary T, welcome, welcome. Other than an Ender or a MakerBot, any suggestions for a student-friendly printer addition to my 3D lab? Yeah, there's plenty of them out there. It's also going to depend on how much you want to spend. And I know in Canada we have specific regulations for schools. Something like the Lulzbot Sidekick that we have here in the back, this is touted or marketed to people in that group or that education group. Is it a great printer for education? I think it can be, but like all Cartesian style machines, it does have its drawbacks. It's very open. Kids can get their fingers stuck into it. There's also the Artemis from FlashForge, which is a very good printer, and I'm going to be doing a review on that Artemis here very soon because I have one, and that is really like, I think their Maker 3 or their Idea 3 or something like that. It really is just a North American rebranded, but the Artemis is somewhat of an enclosed printer. It does have open sides and an open front and an open top. However, there's very big pillars, so it's a little tougher to get your hands in there and little kids to get their fingers caught on hot ends and that sort of thing. So, yeah, anything from FlashForge I think would be a good idea. They are also a great company to deal with. I really like the FlashForge products, and they come in a variety of different sizes. This one here, the Artemis, I think retails in about that $550 to $600 US. And there's really nothing to do when you get it except for take it out of the box, plug it in, and start working with it. And it also has Wi-Fi and I believe Ethernet connectivity. So that might be a benefit to schools as well, Brian. Okay, Tim Postman says, a Lulzbot Mini 2 is one option. Yeah, that's true. The Lulzbots are a good machine. I really like the Lulzbots. I think they're not just a tool or not just a toy. They are definitely a tool. So let's talk about this stuff. Now that we've talked a little bit about upgrades and why I don't think you should always go for those upgrades, because I just don't think they're necessary a lot of the time. Theodore Bradley says, slow as in holidays, family, other obligations. I modded and installed the hardware. I just need to figure out software end of it now. And I may take you up on that offer in a week when I find some time. That's fine. Yeah, Theodore, you can always reach out. Absolutely. Richard at thefirstlayer.com. Anycubic Viper, there's another good one. We do have to watch, though, when we are looking at printers for schools, because schools have very different regulations than some other, like makerspaces, for instance. There's very different rules that govern what they do and what they can have. I think they have to meet a certain government criteria. They have to be CSA approved. They can't have any hazards to the kids. So there are some things there that limit them in what they can get. And there are companies out there. MakerBot does a great one for schools, but it is very expensive. It's very expensive. And, you know, when you can buy Ender 3 Pros or Ender 3 2s for right around $350 to $450 Canadian, they're very attractive because you can buy a lot of them within your budget. But when you're going into higher end machines like MakerBots, where you're paying upwards of $800 or $900 for a printer like that, the P1P from Bamboo might be a great option as well. But when you get into those levels, those financial levels, you don't get as much bang for your buck or as many machines for your buck as you would if you were buying something that had a lower price tag. Ultimaker bought MakerBot. That is correct. They did, and that was something that happened quite a while ago. Coming up on Tuesday, we're going to be putting together the frame on this Voron that I'm building. So I hope that you guys will join me Tuesday night to put together the frame. But I want to talk about these three little packets that are on my table. I'm going to just switch my camera here real quick. you're going to see there's three little packets here. I have one that says color, one that says PLA, and one that says PETG. And what is this? This is the raw material that goes into making the filament that we use. So when we are making PLA, you can see that the color of PLA and PETG are very different. This one is very transparent, very clear, whereas this one is very kind of a murky white or an off-white pellet. These pellets, these two different materials are made at very different temperatures in the extrusion process to make your 3D filament. Now, what gets added to them is the color additive. And the same color additive goes into PLA and into PETG. So if you are getting your materials from a company that is making their own, chances are they have a good idea of what they're making and what they're using on a regular basis. And they have specific formulas of how to get the right color for those different materials. And same thing goes for ABS and so on. I just don't have any ABS pellets, but these little packets of pellets, you're only going to take a very, very small amount of this and mix it in with these two, with either one of these to make your final color. And there are ratios that companies go through to do that. So if you're, if you're looking at the science behind making these materials, they're basically taking a small amount of this, a large amount of this, they're putting them together in a hopper, they're mixing them up, then that gets melted and extruded out through a die, through several baths of water till it gets to its final thickness, and then it is spun in a figure-8 system on some pulleys that keep the tension while it's being spun onto your reel. And we talked a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about filament. Tim Postma is asking, is there still a filament shortage? The short answer to that is yes. It is getting better. And I explained this filament shortage a little while ago. Why is there a filament shortage? Well, the biggest problem with filament shortage is that because companies have gotten away from the single-use plastics, the things that hold your beer cans together, those plastic rings that all the turtles get stuck in, plastic straws, things like that, single-use plastics, cutlery, all that kind of stuff. Now that there is laws in place, because there's so much of it in landfills and it's not breaking down, it's just a pollutant. And it's a pollutant to make a lot of these plastics because they're petroleum based. Companies are now moving to PLA. And PLA is a environmentally friendly plastic because it's derived from cornstarch. PETG, not so much. This is a petroleum-based product, but our drinking bottles and things like that are made from this. This is for multi-use plastics. They want to start using stuff like PLA in single-use plastics, like straws and cutlery and things like that. So that's why there's such a shortage of PLA in the marketplace right now. You can go to your favorite retailer, doesn't matter who they are, and you're going to find a lot of time that they're out of the color or type of material that you're looking for. And that's why. Because a lot of that raw material now is being bought up by these larger plastic companies that are trying to make that move so that they can keep business going, right? So yes, there is still a shortage, but it is getting better. PLA comes from a renewable source, which is corn. And we can grow corn almost everywhere in the world. So, polycarbonate. Tim's asking about polycarbonate. He says, is polycarbonate a material shortage? It's not so much a material shortage, so much as it's not completely popular. So it's very expensive to make polycarbonate material. So it can be a bit of a problem to make it. It's very expensive to make. So We have one here from 3D Experiment. Hello, I miss saying hello to you. I also miss saying hello to SK3D. Hello, welcome, welcome. Yeah, so he says, was it that CNC kitchen that did a PLA breakdown test? It didn't really in those tests. I think he did do a breakdown test. I can't remember. I'll have to go back and have a look. But PLA, is it biodegradable? The question is it biodegradable? And yes, it is. Does it break down in the landfill in 5 years? No, it doesn't. It will over time break down, because 9 times out of 10, when we throw something in the trash, we are throwing in large chunks. So here's a great example right here. So this is support material off something that I printed not too long ago. And if I throw this in the garbage like this, it certainly is not going to break down in a landfill in 5 years. This is going to take some time to break down. However, if I crushed this up into something this size, it would certainly break down in much less time. Is PLA compostable? There's a lot of debate about that as whether it's compostable. I don't believe it is. There is a product out there called Regen. It is a 100% organic made plastic, and it is compostable. However, again, it has to be crushed down in order to make it break down in your compost, okay? Dan B says, question, will a PT100 allow for higher print temps? Let me just highlight that one. That's actually a good question. Will the PT100 allow for higher print temps? It will, but again, you're going to be limited to your, first and foremost, your heater cartridge. Not all heater cartridges can hit that. The 40 watt and the 50 watts, I think, will do a maximum between 280 and 300 degrees. You're not going to get much more than that. There are higher temp heater cartridges, but then you're also going to have to change that in your firmware so that it recognizes that you're using something that can go up beyond that limit. And usually most printers out there today come set with a limit of around 265 to 280. And that's really kind of the limit of those heater cartridges. And it's also going to depend on the block, because if you have too much heat on that block, you're going to damage that block. And you'll expand it beyond its capabilities, then you'll get leaking and you'll have all kinds of stuff. And I've seen it before, so be very cautious when you are trying to get higher temps. You've been asking a little bit about this, Dan, so I'm curious from my own perspective, what are you wanting to print that you're requiring to get to much higher temperatures? Let me know in the chat. Industrial composting is usually an asterisk added. I agree with you on that one, Theodore. Absolutely. 3D experiments, I love this. He says, the next civilization will judge us by our benchy quality and speed. I agree. They are going to definitely do that. NomFam says, PLA is compostable, but in optimal conditions, industrial composters. Okay, so I stand corrected. It is compostable. It's not compostable in your backyard. So there's the asterisk to that. Snapshot FPV, did I say hello to you, NomFam? I'm sure I did, but if I didn't, hello, welcome, welcome. Yeah, so, we've got a lot of different things that we can do. There's tons of different products out there. There's tons of different materials that we can use. Again, it's all really going to depend on what are we printing. I mean, do we really need polycarbonate? Do we really need carbon fiber? Do we really need PLA, or pardon me, PETG or ABS for the prints that we're doing? All this comes into play, especially for new people. And this goes back to our talk about why do we upgrade? Do we need to upgrade, right? So Tim Postma is asking, question, is there a shortage of ASA and which materials are not in shortage? ASA is not in shortage. I don't work for the companies that make the raw material, but I know that companies are struggling around the world to bulk up on all of their different products in stock. I know the company that I work for, Filaments.ca out of Ontario, I know that they're running into supply issues, and it boils down to supply issues. RT, Richard Taylor, I knew I missed somebody. Good afternoon. So it's supply and demand. So ABS is used in a lot of different areas. PETG is used in a lot of different areas, or PET. It doesn't get the G till it becomes a 3D printable material, but PET is another plastic that is used in a lot of different industries. So, these are all things that we have to take into consideration. So I don't think there's any one real shortage other than PLA, but I can't tell you exactly who is top of their game right now. Sorry about that. But good question. Hey, there's Henry Stofferin. He says, how do I get my Ender 5 Plus to level the same front to back I do using G29 command, and the back is always the same, the back is always lower? Henry, first and foremost, you have to make sure that you have leveled that bed manually. And when we are leveling our beds manually, we have to bring that bed to temperature, leave that bed at temperature along with that nozzle. We're going to bring it to temperature. The temperatures that we typically will be printing at for the material that we're printing with. Once we've done that, we can go ahead, home the machine, then we can bring down the head to the 0 point. Once we've done that, we're going to get out our piece of paper, we're going to move that head all the way around our bed, and we're going to be testing and adjusting those corner adjustments so that we have the right amount of pull all the way around. Then, and only then, will you have a level bed. And there's several different things that you can do. There's different tests. If you just do a test for Ender 5 bed level test, do a search for that on the internet, you're going to find that there's tons on Thingiverse, there's a bunch of printables, there's all kinds of them all over. What I typically do is after I've leveled my bed, I go ahead and I print one of those. And then I can visually see, not just feel, but I can visually see that where my bed is not quite meeting that same standard. So then I can go and I can adjust those wheels again. And then I'll run that test a second time. I've been known to run that test up to 6 or 7 times just to kind of dial everything in. And remember, if it's colder in your house and you're not always running your printer, that aluminum, because the aluminum on commercially made machines is made from what's called rolled aluminum, it changes shape differently when it's heated than cast aluminum. Cast aluminum typically is milled down to the thickness that it needs to be, and it then is milled flat so that you have a much more solid and less prone to moving around bed. Now, where we have rolled, you're basically taking, like dough, a roll of material and you're flattening it out. So you're changing the shape of the molecules in there as you flatten that material out, okay? So that's what I would do. I would go around and just do that paper leveling first, run a couple of tests, and then just slowly adjust it till you got it to where you want it, then run a print, and I think you should be just fine, Henry. Okay, let's go back here a little bit. That's actually a great comment. 3D Experiments is saying, I hope soon we will see the hobbyist printable alternatives to PEEK, or is that CFPA 12 today? That is pretty much CFPA 12. For those that don't know what CFPA 12 is, that's carbon fiber nylon. And PA 12 is the tougher of the two nylons that you're going to find in the 3D printing space. There's PA6 and PA12. PA12 is usually the better quality nylon. And then when you add carbon fiber to it, it makes it a little bit tougher. I don't know if we're going to see, PEEK is considered a medical grade plastic, so although people want to use it, it's really tough. Let me just go through here. I know I'm missing something. Oh, there's a question from Dan or DPat. He says, what technological advancements made it possible for 3D printing at home? Was it stepper motors, filament? I'm not sure. The advancements that made it possible to do it at home, that's actually a really good question. From all my research into 3D printing, I find that the two guys that originally came up with the original Mendel printer, they used off-the-shelf components. So I don't think it was any one technology that made it possible. I think CNC made 3D printers technology possible. I think plastic extrusion, the technology that was being used on an industrial scale, made it possible. But having the materials, again, was the toughest part of it. I mean, back in the day, they were using weed whacker line to get things started. And weed whacker line is made from a nylon, and so they had to, they were cobbling things together to be able to make this stuff. And then they discovered that there were other plastics. ABS was probably the most popular plastic for the longest time because it was the only plastic you could really get. Then PLA kind of came along, and PETG. They found uses in our industry to really advance the type of materials. And now, of course, we have varieties of all of those. And then, the nylon got made into something that was usable, but was fairly expensive. So, yeah, a lot of things went into it. I can't pinpoint just one, though. So he says, I'm building a Hero 7Me and figured a V6 all-metal hot end and would be a good mod. I build tool jigs and mods mostly, so 100% PETG now, looking to print ASA or polycarbonate when needed. The Hero Me 7, this has got a standard E3D V6. This is a genuine E3D V6 in here. And this one here, with the brass and that sort of thing, I would be comfortable printing ASA with it. Polycarbonate, probably not. Not on an Ender 3 at least. I think that would be pushing it, but or an Ender 5. I think that at the end of the day, the best way to do that would be, I think you're going to be in the ASA, and ASA is not much different than ABS. ASA is better in the heat. It's a little stronger, but I don't think there's much more to it than that. Let's have a look here. Sheldon Grant. Hello, Sheldon Grant. Says, wanted to let you know that I was able to fix my longer LK1 issues with the top layer. Changed the nozzle, extruder Capricorn, and filament seemed to be inconsistent. To prints like new again. Great. Awesome. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. It's all about problem solving in this hobby, unfortunately. We do a lot of problem solving when we get into this hobby. And I think now that the way that things are moving forward, I think we're going to see differences in some of the printers that are going to hit the market. And Bamboo is a great example of this. They've come out with the X1 and the X1 Carbon, and then the P1P. These are great printers. They're pretty much plug-and-play printers. You don't have to do a whole lot with them. But as we've experienced, they're not perfect. Like any printer, this one that I'm building, not perfect. But is it going to be better than the ones that I have? In a lot of cases, yes. Am I going to use this one to do a lot of higher temp plastic testing? Yes, and that's primarily why I wanted to build another Voron, was because I wanted to be able to use different hot ends, like high flow hot ends and high temp hot ends, so that I could print higher temperature plastics. Now, will I get to the point where I'm printing peak? Probably not in a Voron. I don't think that the plastic side panels, top panel, and the front doors are going to hold up to that kind of heat over time, but they may. I don't know. We'll find out. But in the meantime, it will allow me to get up into those much higher temp plastics, the nylons and the polycarbonate nylons and the blends that are out there. And that's what I really want to test. I've printed ABS, PLA, PETG, and I've printed some nylons. But at the end of the day, I haven't printed really high temp stuff, and I really want to be able to try that so that when I have a problem, I can say to you guys how to fix it. I can actually tell you how to fix it. Tim Postma says, I remember talking to the co-founders of RepRap, and he said they started with ABS welding rod. Oh, okay. I have to go and check my history again, obviously. Okay. So we got 20 minutes left. I'm going to keep taking your questions today for the next 20 minutes. But in the meantime, I want to tell you what's happening here on the show coming up. I've got another episode coming on Tuesday where we are going to assemble the frame on our Voron 300 printer. This is the 2.4 R2 printer, and this is being built in honor of our community member from here on YouTube, and a good friend of mine, Peter Reynolds, who passed away on February 14th at the age of 77. He kind of showed me, and I talked about this the other night, he kind of showed me, and I won't get into a big long diatribe about it, but he showed me that it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. There's always room for us to learn. And I think that is the best sentiment anybody can impart on anybody else, is always keep learning, always keep moving forward. And this is in honor of him. We're going to unveil this at Maker Faire, May 13th and 14th. DeWitt 3D and myself will be side by side. He's going to bring along his bamboo P1P. I'm going to bring along this, and we are going to have some challenges that we're going to do and film for you guys while we're at Maker Faire, and we'll be getting a lot of different coverage while we're at Maker Faire as well, so it'll be a lot of fun. I look forward to it. I look forward to getting this done. I look forward to you guys coming along for the ride on this build and seeing exactly what we're doing. I've got to thank 3D Lab Tech here in Calgary for their help with parts. I want to acknowledge KB3D.com out of the US for parts that are in transit now. BQ, Big Tree Tech, they're sending us all the control surfaces that we need, along with a 5-inch touchscreen. I want to thank LDO Motors. They've done a great job supplying us with all of the hardware fixings that we needed. They supplied all the motors, and they supplied us with the Revo E3D hot end, specifically made for the Voron, and it is themed in their blue color, so that's kind of nice. Who else am I missing? I am missing Lineo, who is supplying us with a wiring harness for this, so I don't have to go through all of the crimping and the crumping of wires and putting ends together. I may have to do one or two, but I won't have to do a ton like I did on my first build. Plastic Works here in Calgary for the wonderful clear plastic panels that we're going to be putting on this. I know I'm missing somebody. Keene Village Plastics, who supplied us with the ABS for this project. The unfortunate part is that we're not using all of that ABS because some of it just didn't work out for us. But this is going to be a black and purple build. And there will be a couple of surprises I'm going to share with you as they come in. I also want to thank Build It Basement for his involvement in this project, and Tim over at DeWitt 3D, who has been printing all the parts for this project for me so that we can get them done. I tried printing them over on the Prusa in the enclosure, and it failed after a while, and I just got frustrated, so Tim took on the challenge of doing that for me. So thank you to DeWitt 3D for that, and I want to thank the community who's helping me to push forward in getting this build done. I've got 10 weeks to do it, and I've got to get it tuned. Golden Jaguar is my ace in the hole. If you have not seen his channel and you're thinking about custom building your own 3D printer, he's a great guy to watch. He's very knowledgeable about the software and the firmware that you're going to need and how to tune it. So I would go and check out his channel for sure. Now, there is another channel I want to point out. He's a very small channel, and if you're not subscribed to him, he is currently building a Voron Trident. And his channel is the Poor Boy channel on YouTube. He has just a little under 200 subscribers. I hope that you'll go over and show him some first layer love and subscribe to his channel and just check him out. He's from South Carolina or North Carolina, one of the two. He's from the Carolinas anyway, and really, really good content and very humble guy. It's great to see people like that. What do we get later, gang? Thanks for the stream. I'm out. 3D Experiments, thank you for coming by. Really loved it. Golden Jaguar, thanks for the stream, Richard. Got to run. Take care, Golden. Hopefully we'll see you guys on Tuesday. Hey, there's Geraldine Ham, my wife, who finally made it. She says, made it for the end, but on the upside, the chocolate chip cookies are done. Who's coming over for chocolate chip cookies? Let's check out Sheldon's question here. He's got a question. Sheldon Grants asks, since we're talking about it, if it's not broken, don't fix it. How often should I be checking for doing firmware updates? That's a very good question. It all depends on what you want for updates. If your printer is working fine, Sheldon, you don't need to update the firmware. However, if you are running into issues, as we all do from time to time, then it might be of benefit to you to upgrade your firmware to allow for some of the new things like input shaper, linear advance, things like that. But I would learn about those things first before making that step. Make sure that there is firmware that is already available for your printer, because not all firmwares are built for specific printers. So that's something else to check into. So, you know, how often should you update? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Plain and simple. I think that at the end of the day is really the thing to kind of get across to everybody. But there are times when we need to update our firmware because of what can wreck firmware, what can cause corruption in firmware. Well, the computer guys that are in our stream today are going to maybe debate me on this, but sometimes when we download an STL file, there can be malicious software in there. When you go to slice that, it can cause problems in your printer. It can corrupt that firmware. I don't care what anybody says. I know it for a fact that it can be done. I've seen it done. Once the firmware has been updated or reflashed with the same firmware that it used, everything went back to normal. I've experienced it myself. In the early days of 3D printing, there wasn't a lot of double checking about STLs, how they were made and how they were designed. And like with anything, you can get a virus inside of or corrupt code. I won't say a virus. I'll say corrupt code in a JPEG or in a GIF file or a GIF file, depending on who you talk to. You can get it from anywhere. But we can't go around putting condoms on our STLs. So the best thing to do is when you are downloading, make sure you're downloading from a site that you trust, someplace that has good quality STLs. I'm going to say stay away from Thingiverse if you can. Don't get something from somebody who only has put up like one file and it only just got there. go to files, go to makers that have been there for a while. There's great places like printables.com, Cults 3D, there is My Mini Factory. There's all kinds of places that have great STLs. Now, the other thing that can happen is we all experience this all over the world. It's called a brownout. And what a brownout is when your electricity to your home drops and then spikes and then drops. It's not a constant flow. And when we have issues with storms, that causes brownouts or blackouts. Those power surges can corrupt our firmware. So that's something to be aware of as well. Those things will affect your firmware over time. Static electricity will affect your printer and how it operates. So all these things should be taken into account. If you're having problems with the current firmware that you have, reflash it with the exact same firmware that you've been using. Just a nice clean file, and see if that solves your problem. If it doesn't, then maybe try an upgrade. I know that was a long drawn out question or answer, but I think it was well worth it. Let's see what NonFam has to say here. He says, me, cookies. Oh, wait, I have 3,800 kilometers to drive. That's a bit much for cookies. Sorry, NonFam, I'm going to eat your share. E-steps and axis for the 3D printer tool heads, and second, that is why you slice your own models. Yeah, that's exactly why we slice our own models. Benny Brady, brownout equals fart with lumps. Okay, I can see that. I can see that. We do experience that in our 3D printers, though. Hi, Chief. There's Marcel Demers. Hello, Marcel. Nice to see you. We've only got about 10 minutes left, but that's okay. I want to remind you guys to, if you got something out of today, how we support this show is by using the super chat down at the bottom. You'll see there's a little square in the chat that has a $sign. This is how we support this show. It's not how I support myself, but it's how I support making content for you guys and getting some of the stuff that I need. Whether that being buying plastic or buying parts or things like that to do new content. So that's how I support the channel. If you don't have to, just by hitting that like button, leaving a comment, and being a part of our live streams and taking part in the videos that we upload does help a lot as well. But if you are so inclined and you want to throw us a couple of coffee dollars, that's always appreciated as well. So I wanted to get that in there. If you are new to my channel and you got something out of today, hit that subscribe button. Where is that button? I know it's right there. It is. Hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way to helping us get more people, get this channel in front of more eyes so that we can help more people with their 3D printing problems. We're building up a nice little family here. We're working kind of behind the scenes with Golden Jaguar 3D, Build It Basement, DeWitt 3D, and myself. We're working together to do a little show together that will benefit all of the community, not just one person or a handful of people. And we're going to hopefully reach a lot more people than we do now. Alteracious, Richard, I can be there in 30 minutes. I like cookies. Alteracious, you're always welcome. You know that. Shadell, send cookies to me and I'll send a bottle back. I don't know if the cookies will make it to you, Shadell. I'm pretty sure that Canada Post might take advantage of them. Yeah. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that name. FJSKMDL. He says, hi, my print bed is higher in the center than on the sides. In your video, you said that you can use tape on the sides. Do you mean I have to stick tape between the build plate and the PEI sheet on the 4 sides? Yes, that is exactly what I mean. But as we discussed earlier, heat up that bed, take a ruler, and rotate that ruler around on that bed. Because if you do that, I'm going to tell you that if you do that, you're going to see exactly where it's low. And then you can put a little piece of Kapton tape, or you can put a piece of duct tape, the metal aluminum duct tape, not the fabric stuff. Don't ever put the fabric stuff on there. You want to put the actual ducting tape that you get from the hardware store, okay? Thank you very much, Marcel Demers, for the super chat, $10. It always goes a long way to helping us do what we do. Tim Postma, take care. Have yourself a great, great afternoon. We're going to wrap things up here in about 7 minutes or so. Ben Brady says, I'll send a tube of Pringles up to Geraldine Ham and hopefully she'll send back with cookies. You're going to have to talk to her about that, Ben. You're going to have to talk to her. There's that super chat. Thank you again, Marcel. I do appreciate that, and it does go a long way. Tezza says, hi, Richard. Sorry I'm late. That's okay, Tezza. You know, people are late all the time. That's okay. So Kevin Modershaw, I hope I said that right. Kevin Modershaw, he says, his question is, I've had an Artillery Genius for a few weeks, done a few prints using standard and dynamic settings in Cura, and every print has lines which show not smooth print. Which settings are best to alter? Okay, if you are going at standard and dynamic settings, you want to look at your speed. Speed is a big factor in getting a smooth print. Now, if your belts aren't tight, you want to make sure that all of your axes have the right amount of tension on them. That's a big part of it. And with the Artillery Genius, I don't know that printer specifically, but I can tell you that all of these machines kind of run the same way, and they're all pretty much built the same way. So I would go ahead, make sure that all my belts are tensioned correctly, make sure that all of my screws are tight so nothing is changed, or nothing can change while it's printing. Make sure that all of the parts are on square to one another, and you can use a square to do that. A machinist square is just fine. You can use a small carpentry square. That'll work as well. But make sure, first and foremost, that everything is tight and everything is tensioned correctly. Then if you're going to go into those more dynamic speeds or the higher quality prints when you're getting down to like 0.18 or 0.08 or 0.12, then you want to slow down that machine, because the faster you go, the more it can kind of drift a little bit. So slow it down a little bit. When you're at draft speeds, I usually go on a Cartesian anywhere between 45 and 50 millimeters per second. When I start getting up into, or start getting down into a much finer quality, I usually will slow that down to about 35 to 40 millimeters per second, and I get beautiful prints. Absolutely beautiful prints. Theodore, Zombie Hedgehog said he was going to interview with you. Am I mistaken, or is that a different program it will air on? Zombie Hedgehog and I have talked a little bit, and we are going to try and get together and do an interview together. I don't know if it's going to be on his channel or mine yet, but we are trying to work something like that out, and hopefully we'll get that done soon. So yes, we're going to see interviews on different channels over the next little while. So that's a good thing. Ben, what are you trying to do with my wife here? LOL, Geraldine Ham, but they wouldn't be from Texas. I can get Pringles here, Ben. You don't have to bribe my wife with Pringles. I can get Pringles here. Oh, you just want the tube to be sent to me so I can send back cookies. Yeah, that usually doesn't happen. Thanks for that. I'll give it a try. Love the show. Often lurk and listen. Well, thank you very much, Kevin. I appreciate that. Tezza says humidity here today is over 50%. Where are you, Tezza? Where are you? I want to know why your humidity is so high. Okay, he said he was doing that today. It was 2 a.m. He must have been confused. Could be. Yeah, he hasn't reached out to me and actually set a date, but I'm sure he will send me a message if he wants me on a show, and we can work that out. Absolutely. Alteration says, tube will get filled with bacon or brownouts before shipping back to Texas. Yeah, all right. Tasmania. Teza is in Tasmania. Wow. Wow. Sheldon Grant, thank you very much for the super chat. Let's put that up on the screen. Thank you very much for that. It does go a long way. Kevin says he's in the UK, by the way, and it's cold. LOL, snowy, snow may be on the way. It actually snowed here last night, and yeah, not a big fan of snow. Not a big fan of snow. Even though I come from a place that is full of snow. FYI, cameras all working now. Operator error in OBS. LOL. DeWitt 3D, we had a little conversation on our Discord, which, before I go, I want to tell you about our Discord. For our members, there is a link to our Discord in the community notes that is just been directed to our members. You can join our Discord. Actually, our Discord is really open to anybody in the 3D printing community. We're trying to build it out. When you are on Discord, just look for the first layer. It is by invite only right now, so if you don't have an invite or you can't get in, please let me know, and we will get you an invite. You can always send me an email to richard@thefirstlayer.com, or you can find me on Facebook. I am Richard Cleveland on Facebook, so I'm always in our Facebook group anyway, so you just click on my name and message me if you need to. Tasmania with Devils. Last night temp was 26 Celsius. I would take that. I'm glad he sent me your way. Either way, it's been a great show today. Thank you very much, Theodore. I do appreciate that. But it is 3 o'clock, and so we are going to wrap things up. I think I have an end screen here. Yeah, we're going to wrap things up. And with that said, I want to thank everybody for joining me today. Thank you for the questions. Thank you, everybody, for the super chats. We're going to see you again on Tuesday night for another part 2 or episode 2 on building our Voron. We're actually going to get started assembling the frame on Tuesday night. We're going to go Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That'll be 5 p.m. on the West Coast and 8 p.m. on the East Coast. And somewhere, other places in the world, it might be well after midnight, and some places it might be early morning. So we're going to see you on Tuesday night with this. Steve Reimer, hello, thank you. And we're going to get this put together. I've got some things up my sleeve that we're going to make sure that this thing is all square. So I know I don't have a nice big piece of marble like a lot of people, but we're going to do that. So join us on our Discord. We're going to have some stuff that we're going to be doing on Discord directly. That won't be done on Facebook or on YouTube or on Twitch. I will be streaming both on Twitch and on YouTube on Tuesday night as we assemble this, and we're going to just take it from there. So until I see you guys next time, remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great 3D print. Take care. I'll see you guys all next time.